Welcome to Mpowered Living. I'm Sheu. On this podcast, innovative leaders and visionary experts share insights and practical tools for work, family, and marriage. Each episode, we'll explore how to elevate your life while staying grounded in what truly matters to you. You're working hard to navigate relationships, build a thriving family, and create a legacy of purpose. We're here to help you do that with confidence and intentionality. So if you're ready to live a life by design, you're in the right place. Let's dive in. Welcome back to Mpowered Living. I'm your host, Sheu, and my guest today is Jodi Scott. She's an entrepreneur, the founder of Green Goo, and someone who built a company around integrity, purpose, and what she calls spreading goodness. From the outside, it looked like momentum, growth, impact, success. And then in less than 24 hours, it was all gone. In this episode, we talk about what happens when your identity is wrapped up in what you've built, and then that thing starts to disappear. We explore the difference between resilience that grinds and resilience that grounds. We unpack the protector instinct so many leaders carry, the one that makes you the fixer, the saver, the strong one, and what it looks like to evolve beyond it. And at the center of all of it is a skill most leaders underestimate but desperately need. If you've been operating in urgency, carrying more than your share, or feeling the quiet pull toward a different way of leading, this conversation might shift something for you. Let's dive in. Jodi, welcome to the show. It's so exciting to have you here with us today.
Thank you so much for having me.
All right, let's just dive in. You have said that your guiding philosophy is simple but deeply lived, to spread goodness. Where did that philosophy first take root for you?
Yeah, so when we first started Green Goo, our goal was to reinvent first aid. And we wanted to really educate and inform people to avoid certain chemicals and to invite plants into their first aid solution. And when we started thinking as a team what our mission was, we recognized that it wasn't just to spread these good products on us and on our children and on our dogs and have clean ingredients. It was really more about choosing integrity and how we wanted to build the organization. We want to make sure that our team members felt fully supported and that we were in an environment where there was empathy, there was trust, there was creativity, and it was free of judgment and in a place where we could support each other. We also didn't want to compromise the integrity of how we made these products. And so where everyone was cutting corners and buying pre-made extracts, we were still making the ingredients ourselves and taking the plants to the manufacturing facility and protecting that extraction process so that we could give our customers real results. And it also included just the environment that we wanted to have in terms of empowering each other. And you think about in any stage of the day, how would this translate to spreading goodness, down to opening the door for someone as they're walking in and smiling for them? And so it became a part of not just the mechanics of building our company in terms of the actual products, but how we built it culturally. And then it became a part of our DNA. I just really value that as one of my North Stars on a day-to-day basis and how it lifts me up and lifts the people around me.
It's beautiful. So now I'm curious, it's part of your culture. How are you screening for that when you're hiring? Like, what are you looking for in the hiring?
Well, we first make sure no one's afraid of it because we're like, if this isn't for you, it is okay.
Yeah.
But part of that too is how do you in practice spread goodness? So when we're talking about the production component, so if you're on the fulfillment and production team, really aligning with the fact that we're protecting the integrity of who we're sourcing the ingredients from, how we're protecting this process. And if at any point along that SOP starts to look questionable, that they're confident and aligned to make sure that they're going to be sharing that. And then in addition to that, things like becoming a B Corp. And in that certification, there are certain practices that get you the points to be able to qualify for that certification. And so in that interview process, if they're not really excited about being in a B Corp, then that is questionable for both parties, right? That's not a priority for them, because that in many ways amplifies that culture of spreading goodness. And we're not pretty, we're very transparent with our potential employees to just ensure that that is something that really aligns with them. Because at the end of the day, you don't always have to be on board for spreading goodness. That's okay. But within our organization, it's everything. As a matter of fact, when COVID happened, it was so cool to see that we went from being in our office every day with each other, and in a matter of 48 hours, we're all of a sudden in separate places, and we were 98% retail, and all of a sudden no one's going into stores.
Mhm.
And our DNA of spread goodness was so clear. We were able to very quickly pivot to an online business. And we also had sanitizer in our portfolio. And my team was able to come up with a plan to donate thousands and thousands of bottles for first responders and people who were out in the field that needed it in a time that was so important. And that was so top of mind, because when you're in a state of crisis, when you have certain faculties that you've developed within yourself, you don't lose those, because oftentimes fight or flight, it's a very narrowed way of survival, and part of spreading goodness is being very present, and that's a very expansive way of thinking. And so it can help a team problem solve very quickly.
Yeah, no, that's great. Okay, so let's dive in a little bit because you mentioned this being present. So, can you talk a little bit more about that and what does that mean? How does somebody do that?
Yes, I think it's the secret sauce, everyone. I'm like, plants, presence, and purpose. So good. Well, first I'll say I will never forget when my daughter was about like 5 years old, and we went to one of her little teacher conferences, which I thought was funny for 5 year olds. She tells me, your daughter is so present and it's such a gift.
Mm.
You should really cultivate it. And my first response was, is she not getting her work done? Is she listening? Is she making everyone late? Like, I literally did not understand what she meant. I thought it was a problem. And fast forward 10 years later, and all of a sudden I'm like, oh my gosh, that is what she was trying to tell me. And so for me, I discovered presence through a really difficult time. So we built our company, and when we built it, there was a lot of fight or flight. I was on the road all the time. Resilience meant pushing through. It was always the next thing you had to accomplish, the next thing. And we got through the pandemic in this really beautiful way, very much aligned as a team. Didn't have to terminate a single employee, but I recognized very quickly that we couldn't insulate risk the same way these bigger companies could, and that we needed to manage that. And so we were looking for a financial partner. And ultimately, what happened is we sold our company to be a part of another company. So we weren't leaving, but we were folded into their portfolio. And unfortunately, they faced legal and financial issues very soon after the transaction. So much so that I had less than 24 hours to terminate my entire team,
Mm.
including my mom and sister, and including my husband, my sister's husband, best friend, employee number one. And all of a sudden, not only did we lose our jobs and our company, but we lost our purpose. And the thing that I was getting up every day to do, like everything was about doing. And all of a sudden, I couldn't do. And stopping in quicksand like that really shakes the floor out from underneath you. And I had this coach, and I had only recently started working with him. And so it was very new in the relationship. And I had to call him and be like, Timmy, I'm not going to be able to pay you on Monday, so I'm not going to be able to make the meeting. And he's like, what happened? And I explained. And he's like, I'll be there every Monday at 5 o'clock if you show up.
Mm.
And of course, I felt the love. But when you're so like the floor has been pulled out from underneath you, even someone giving you the greatest gift ever, you have so much paralysis, right? You can't. I'm thinking about the past. I'm thinking about the future. I'm thinking of all the things I didn't do that I should have done. I'm thinking of like, oh my gosh, how are we going to pay the mortgage next month? All of it. And I really didn't think I was going to show up to that meeting that Monday. And he was such a sweetheart that I actually showed up out of guilt, not out of like honor. And I get there and he's like, okay, Jodi, we're going to start your mental fitness boot camp. We are going to get you present so that you can buy your company back.
Mm.
And I'm like, how does all of that fit in one sentence? What does that even mean? And so he started, I had to set my alarm every 3 hours and do a presence exercise. And that may be as simple as feeling my feet on the ground, taking a couple deep breaths, watching the horizon, hearing the birds, the furthest sound, the closest sound. And he had these various nervous system exercises that you do for about 30 seconds to 2 minutes. And I literally every 3 hours had to set my alarm to do these things. And at first it sounded easier in practice. And then try doing it and not have all the thoughts flood your mind. And what quickly I learned through that is I was building this mental fitness. I'm going to call it a muscle because I don't know what else to call it in terms of how to get present in a very challenging moment. And all of a sudden, there's clarity and back to that expansive way of being. And I could think clearly to make decisions in order to move forward in a time where I was overwhelmed with anxiety, overwhelmed with depression, overwhelmed with fear. And that was such a beautiful anchor and shift in how I completely changed moving forward. And resilience was no longer pushing forward. Resilience was being.
So if somebody is listening and they might have this definition of resilience that is about pushing through, powering through, deal with it, right? What would you suggest to them? How do they reframe that and where do they even start?
Mm, so much goodness in there. In reframing this, so it's fair that what we have been taught in resilience, especially entrepreneurs, but even parenting, partnerships, illness, when you've been diagnosed with something, it's hard for us not to go into this notion of like push forward is the answer. And the best advice I can give is that you're only filling your cup maybe half full and arguably maybe even less. And you're doing yourself a disservice. You are not in an optimal state of performance to be able to take on the hardest things. And when you build this muscle and continue to build it, so to this day, I don't set my alarm every 3 hours, but I am very intentional of the same way I go to the gym and work out and make sure that I continue to have those presence exercises throughout the day. And there are times where I can see that I've gone a little too far and I haven't been doing it and I'm not as resilient. And then I spend more time investing in it. And it could be as simple as when you're washing your hands and just don't think about the 10 things you're going to do after you wash your hands. Like feel the water on your hands. Like when you're taking that shower and you're rushing out the door, just stop. Feel yourself washing there. And the more you do that, then what you'll find is when you're in a high anxiety situation, when we typically get hijacked, you find that peace and that presence within you to stop. And then that's when the creativity comes and that's when you're able to navigate. And so taking those small steps, I invite you to try to set the alarm. Do that so that you have something to hold you accountable. Because I used to think if you didn't meditate for 2 hours, you weren't going to get what everybody kept talking about with presence. And the data shows that's not true. These small, incremental, and consistent moments, they compound and they add up and they matter.
Why do you think presence is such an underestimated skill in leadership and in parenting?
I mean, it's so ingrained and not even just in our DNA, right? Fight or flight is this wonderful resource that was a part of our existence. But also, everything around us preys on that, whether it is marketing or social media, being inundated with food. I work with some folks who have food recovery
Mm.
and they've had different challenges in how to stack habits. And getting present has been one of the greater milestones in these individuals working through food obsessions and food addictions. And so it's difficult when you have the whole world challenging you to not be present, and we're taught not to be that way. And then just inviting this new era. And I think about, so fast forward, my daughter, 14, when this happens, and her teacher's like, "Hey, I need to talk to you." My daughter tells me this when she gets home from school. She's like, "Oh my gosh, mom, you're not going to believe what happened to me today." I'm like, "What?" She's like, "I took a test, and then the teacher's like, 'I need to talk to you.'" She's like, and she's so, type A. She's like, "Oh, great. What did I do? What did I do wrong?" He goes, "I really want to applaud you for how you took your test." And she just kind of stood back, and he was like, "You were really in the moment." He's like, "I watched you take a couple deep breaths. You rubbed your fingertips together. Never seen that before at school. And then I watched you just really get present and go through the questions that you knew, got those done, and then you came back and you were able to really work through the ones you didn't know." He's like, "That was a really great way to take the test. And I just want to applaud you." She goes, "Mom, it was like talking to you." And I thought, oh my gosh, like the halo effect too. But I'm like, if we could teach younger generations and change the conversation, to your point, of the value, because it's not only that you get high performance results, you also get more joy. And I found, even from a leadership perspective, by walking this talk with my team, when you create an environment where everyone's a little more vulnerable, they're free of judgment, they're like really in the moment, and they're holding themselves accountable when they're not in the moment. Like, I have team members very specifically say, "Hey, you know what? I'm coming into this meeting. Something happened at home. I got in a fight with my husband. I'm having a hard time getting in the moment." But just to name it and to be aware of that, then all of a sudden they're like free of it, because they're not coming in hiding this feeling that they're like, "I can't be here in the moment." They're in a space where they get to share that. And all of a sudden you're shed of that. And it's like, "Oh, okay, let's," or you can help each other out. That's the other part. It's like, "Well, what can I do to help you get up?" We call it above the line, get above the line to that place of creativity. And we may workshop that for a few minutes and like really honor it. And then what's cool is when they go home, these are the things they're talking about at the dinner table. Because, hello, leaders, you know that impact you have at work is the impact you have at people's homes. You're going to be the one that they are talking about. And my goodness, wouldn't it be great if you're the one that they're talking about that's like, "I learned these skills and it was so good, and let me share this with you, family," versus like you come to the dinner table and it's like, it's toxic, right? When you have a toxic leadership, it's like toxic at the dinner table. So it's been really fun to experience this shift in my world. And it's almost like, back to toxic, it's intoxicating. Like, I just want to shout it from the rooftop for people.
So now that you are leading from this place of presence instead of fear and urgency and scarcity, what helps you notice when you find yourself slipping back into that survival mode? Because it's our hardwiring, so it's inevitable that it's going to happen. But what are some of the things that you do to help you notice when you're back there?
So we have a saying, "Don't leave your hand on the hot stove for too long." Like, feel it, you're human. To just like suppress it doesn't do us any favor. So it's like, if you need to just let that thing move through you, feel it, name it, give it a moment, and then set it aside, work through it. That has been very helpful. And in doing that exercise, you start to feel when you're off. You're like, "Oh, like I'm making a decision in this state of fear. I need to kind of take a step back. I need to breathe." Or you also find that when you do the work, you're able to like almost flip that feeling very quickly to get to that state of presence. But I will say, back to that notion of like working on the muscle, it is something you want to continuously invest in, the same way you go to the gym, because I could feel times where I wasn't spending as much time throughout the day honoring that muscle, that it was harder to take my hand off the hot stove as quickly as I would have liked.
What's a leadership habit that seems to be productive on the surface? Like people think this is what you should be doing and this will be helpful, but in reality, it actually is harmful, not helpful, maybe creates disconnect, trust. What's something that you've noticed?
I think it's that like brevity, that rush, that like that And everyone knows that energy when someone comes into the room and they're just ready to steamroll anything that comes their way. And what happens is everyone in that room all of a sudden shields up. Like, I need to protect myself. And everyone then becomes into that. And leadership is unfortunately probably the most responsible for this, because your team is incredibly responsive to the energy that you bring into the room.
Right.
And it's not saying you can't be firm. Like, you can be firm and present at the same time. They're very much in support of each other. It's a different state when you come in and you know that you're not present. You are just like, I'm going to push through this thing. And then you usually leave that meeting not rewarded, right? You're like, we didn't get anything done. Nobody was responsive. Like, what's wrong with everyone? And then you can see that like spiral.
Okay, so let's talk about I know that you've got a couple of go-to questions that you use for connection. Can you share those questions with our listeners, but then also explain why they're so powerful?
So these are just so casual. It's interesting because people need casual. And the idea behind these questions, so I invite you to take these questions and you can transform it in any way that you want, but so that the undercurrent is still the same. And so when I ask someone, especially like if I'm in a Zoom and we're coming from all different places, and even a team member from somewhere else, I'm like, how's the weather where you're at? And I'm not concerned about what the weather really is. I'm more learning more about how they answer the question. Did they get outside and have a walk? Are they sharing that, oh, I haven't been outside in a while? And, or how they frame their response can give you some really good intel to where they are. Are they coming in below the line? Are they down? Is something weighing on them? Are they coming in at a place of curiosity? And so then you can really move the conversation in a way where perhaps you can help bring that up into, a more productive place. And the same is, I'll ask, what are you making for dinner? Or what do you have for lunch? And I'll ask my daughter even like, who'd you sit with at lunch? Because if you're like, how are you? That's a yes or no, very much like they're judging me in terms of, am I having a good day or a bad day? Because it's free of judgment. But if they're like, oh, I sat with so and so, and they start telling you a story, or I sat alone, then I can take that information and know where to move it. In the same way, we're like, oh, I didn't have lunch today. It was just go, go, go. You know where they're coming in at, or if they're excited about a meal that they're preparing for. And so taking that kind of model where it's less yes or no, removing the judgment from the response, and it's really more like an authentic curiosity. And so my husband always laughs. He's like, you know what everyone's eating all the time. Because I'm like, so what are you guys having for dinner tonight? And then the best part is I walk away like, hey, I got a great idea. Like, let's make, I don't know. I got some inspiration on a meal. So it's fun.
I love that. Okay, so I know that you have, even on this podcast, you've shared a little bit about the struggle of rebuilding. Can you talk about what it took to be able to share that story openly and share it in a way that really inspires and encourages others?
Yes. So obviously, when the sale happened and everything just fell apart, and you're going through that journey of shame and should have, would have, could have, and you lose everything, and then all of a sudden you gain everything. And what I learned in this journey is what an opportunity it was for me, one, to learn a different way of living, a different way of leading. And then all of a sudden it was like, this is what needs to be shared so that we can empower others, because it's equitable. That's the other thing that I just love about presence, is that it's free. No one has to bottle it up and charge you anything for it. It is literally a choice that you get to make. And it's incredible. And so for me, it took a while to know how to, and I'm still learning the ontology of this, but it felt so important to be able to share that story so that people can take this with them. Because what I recognize now today is not only am I a different partner, a different parent, a different leader, but future challenges I will be able to harvest from this acumen, these tools, and find more joy and success through them, even what appears to be the most difficult thing that you've ever experienced. And there's just such a gift in that I want so many people to be able to experience.
There's something that happens when you do a hard thing, you believe you can do other hard things, right? There's this confident spillover effect that happens. So I'm curious, you went through this hard season that you had to learn some new things. Have you, um, what's been something that you've intentionally invited into your life that was difficult, that really pushed you out of your comfort zone so that you could do other hard things?
Well, there's also just little things like this will make you laugh. Like, I don't like sitting in the middle in an airplane, right? I love the new commercial in Southwest that now that there's assigned seating. And I will invite some little things like that
Yeah.
and allow myself to just be uncomfortable.
Mm.
And it's a presence exercise, right? It's just a way for me to continue to build that muscle so that I can be better prepared for some of the more difficult things. So I like to find those little things along the way. I'm sure there's been many more difficult things in the last 6 months that I would have called mountains before, and they're just not mountains now.
I love that it's a muscle that you can build that gets stronger. And the more you practice it, the more you sit with those hard things, the more you practice the presence, the more it's readily available and accessible when you need it in those tough moments.
Awareness is an incredible thing, and it gets you to a place where you can be aware of some of these habits that we've developed that probably served us well. There are plenty of things that we have done in our lifetime that we needed to have during those seasons. And when you have that practice of presence and awareness, you can kind of meet some of those characters or, saboteurs or personas that we call them and say, okay, like, here's what I'm going to take from that today and let the rest go. And that's also really freeing as well.
So you've talked about your daughter. Tell me, as you've been growing, leading this business, what are some of your favorite leadership practices that you like to apply to parenting?
Well, it was such a testament to that halo effect in terms of her taking that test and reminding her to get present, take things in small bites, don't leave your hand on the hot stove for too long, like those little sound bites. And what was fun is I used to tell her these bedtime stories when she was younger. I mean, and even up until she was 10, 12 years old. And I would weave in some of these things that I was learning. And we eventually fine tuned them into little presence pieces. And so my mom and I just finished writing some children's books, and my mom is actually illustrating them. And so we're going to reintroduce the bedtime stories, but with this beautiful weave of instilling some of these practices so that children can digest them in a way that aligns with them and bring some of that awareness to them at a younger age. Because my hope would be for them, they don't have to wait until you're a middle aged entrepreneur that meets a crisis to access this. And, I really believe in investing in better humans make better leaders, which makes a better world. And so I'm really hopeful that they can be impactful.
What are some of the favorite lessons from children's books that you're excited to
I'll call one the pickle pause.
Okay, yeah, tell me about that.
Yeah, so it's a way of Mr. Pickles and just saying, "Hey, this is the pickle pause. This is the moment where, you don't cry over spilt milk. You give yourself the moment to be sad about it and name it. But just have a pickle pause for a moment and like recognize what that feels in your body, because I think that's the other thing is the antithesis to go go go. We've also been raised into not feel, like don't cry, don't feel that emotion. And yet it's so interesting, like our nervous system and our skin, which is what I love about, even doing more with green goo, they're all like born from the same embryonic tissue and they're so connected. And so allowing yourself to just know what those feelings feel like in your body are great signals. They're great communicators for making decisions and having discernment. And so just really getting to know the practice of being human, and how to leverage that instead of be afraid of it and run from it.
Great. Any other favorite lessons from children's books?
I'll save it for the book.
Okay, love it. Okay, so before we wrap up, I would love to do a couple of rapid fire questions. You ready?
Go for it.
Okay. What's a daily practice that helps you stay connected to goodness?
When I first wake up, I put my feet on the ground and I like to keep the lights off. Do not go on my phone, and make a very strong intention to see the sun come up over the horizon and let that light come in before I bring in any kind of artificial lighting.
What's a question that you go back to when you feel like things are getting hard?
What is the gift and opportunity?
The belief that you've had to let go of,
And the belief that I had to let go of.
that you chose to let go of.
It's funny, I just did this exercise in one of my business retreats last weekend. And so here's one for you. I had to let go of being the protector and evolve that trait as a child. That was something that I really acquired as growing up in the military, and reframe that into being what we called the archer, which is actually protecting my energy more, because what I used to do is just come in and save every situation and be very hyper vigilant to helping everyone in the room, and recognizing that I needed to let people learn that on their own. And so I can be a protector from back here.
Okay, I want to dive into that because I feel like that's going to resonate so much with so many of the listeners. This protector, rescuer, save the day energy, right? When I think about our listeners, they are those people. They are the ones that are saving the project, saving the deal, saving their family, doing all of the things. So how does somebody shift away from that energy into what you just described?
It was a visceral experience to, one, identify it and name it and recognize kind of where it came from. And more than likely, you are a person who has always been the one who is front and center, the problem solver, the fixer, the helper.
Mhm.
And you don't even realize how vigilant you are. It's like you're never turning it off. And it
Mhm.
gets you out of being present, which I found very interesting. I was like, wow, I can see how quickly I can shift where I'm no longer in this state of presence and I'm now being hijacked. And
Mm.
so, my best advice is recognizing, by the practice of being present, when you shift into that persona, and also recognizing that your energy is, there's only so much energy that you can put forth in a day. And the process by which another human needs to journey something is incredibly important. And from a leadership perspective, our job is to like find the resources for the person to do the thing. And so when you start thinking about them owning that more than you owning that, and expending your energy in a more focused way so that they can execute, all of a sudden it just changes it. So, like, my team had me name it from the protector to the archer. So, the archer only has so much ammunition and you have to be very precise with it. So, when you start thinking about your energy in that way, you become far more strategic in how you can get the same results, but maybe even better, by that person being able to execute on their own.
Good. That's such a good reframe. And I need that. Okay. What's something that you are trying to release in this season of your life?
Trying to release in this season in my life, I am trying to learn the inverse of basically avoid. So it's not just avoid certain ingredients, but it might be avoid certain situations, avoid like maybe even certain people. I've just never given myself permission to
Mm.
have more boundaries. And so I look at it as simple as an ingredient component, because obviously that aligns very well with me, with what I do professionally, but it allows me to mirror that in other ways in my life to have more empowerment, that it is just okay to say no.
Okay. And then last question, finish the sentence. Presence changes everything because.
Presence is purpose. Presence is expansive.
Hey, Jodi, if people are listening and they want to learn more about you, I know you're going to give us some links that we'll drop into the show notes. Is there anything else that you would like to share, though, about how people get in touch with you? Any final thoughts that you would like to share with our listeners?
Just don't ever hesitate to reach out. I love hearing from people, whether they're Green Goo customers or not. I often hear from other entrepreneurs that are just looking for various resources or a platform to create a community. And please don't ever hesitate to reach out.
I love this conversation. Thank you so much. It's been amazing. Thank you for being on this episode with us. I've learned so much and thank you. Appreciate you.
Thank you. Thank you for being here with me.
Thanks for tuning in to Empowered Living. I hope today's conversation sparked some inspiration and gave you tools to live more intentionally in your family, work, and life. If you enjoyed our episode today, be sure to subscribe so you never miss an inspiring story or actionable takeaway. And if you know someone who would love this episode, share it with them. Because living an intentional life is better when we do it together. Until next time, remember, the life you want doesn't happen by chance, it happens by choice. Let's keep creating it one step at a time.